Hey friends, welcome back. This video is just about a week's worth of time, and we are going to go through and see what meals we've made and what some of our activities that we've done for other things, and we will get started. Hello friends, welcome back to Harvest Moon Farm. My name is Mickey, if this is your first time visiting my channel. On my channel, I tend to focus on homesteading activities. We do a lot of cooking and baking. I do some gardening and also a lot of food preservation. We do have some animals, chickens, ducks, goats, so occasionally we talk about those as well. So today I am making a beer cheddar soup, and so I had 4 slices of bacon that I cut into little pieces, and I've got them in my Dutch oven here, and I'm just frying them up, and we want to just get them nice and crispy and brown before we remove those from our pan and move on to the next step. And so I diced up a half an onion that's going to go in this pan once we remove the bacon. So once that bacon's done, we're removing the bacon and leaving the bacon grease because we're going to use that to flavor the rest of our soup. So once I get these last few pieces of bacon out, and I'm just putting them on a paper towel lined paper plate to kind of drain a little bit, then I'm going to add my chopped onion in there in a minute. Struggling to get all that bacon out. So I'm going to go ahead now and add that half of an onion that I've chopped up, and I'm going to cook it until it's nice and soft. And then I'm also going to add some chopped celery. I believe the recipe called for either 2 or 3 stalks, and I had some that was already chopped in my freezer, so I just pulled that out and threw in there what I thought might be about that 2 or 3 stalks. I think it was 2. And then I'm just going to put what's left back in my freezer. And then I'm letting that cook down a little bit. And while that's cooking, I've got 3 garlic cloves that I'm mincing that I'm going to add to the onion and celery mixture. So we just want to make sure that our onion and celery have gotten soft. Excuse me. And then we are going to add some butter and our garlic cloves that we've minced up, and we're going to just cook all that down until the butter is melted. Now, once our butter is melted and everything, all the vegetables are nice and soft, we're going to add a little bit of flour, and we're just going to stir that in to kind of make a roux for our soup, and that is going to help make it nice and thick. So I'm just going to stir that in. I opted not to try to use a whisk because of the small veggie pieces. I figured they would get caught in the whisk. I've done that before. So I'm just using this wooden spoon, stirring it up, and we want to just let that cook so we get the raw flour taste out, and we've got it all cooked in with those veggies. Once our roux is all done, we're going to go ahead and add 1 can of whatever kind of beer you want. This is just what my husband had in the house. So we're going to add a 12-ounce can of beer and stir that in. And then we are going to add some Worcestershire sauce. Oh, forgot the mustard. We're going to add some mustard, which I thought was a little bit of an odd ingredient, but it tasted amazing. So then we're going to add our Worcestershire sauce, and we are also going to add some cream, and then just a little bit, I think just a pinch of cayenne pepper, and then we're going to add our cooked bacon and stir that in. And we let that cook, I believe, about 10 or 15 minutes until it's really nice and thick. And then we remove it from the heat, and we add about 2 cups of our cheddar cheese. I actually had a smoked cheddar. You can see my bag there that I had in the freezer. And I'm so glad that I used the smoked cheddar. It was amazing. So we're just going to add our cheese and then just stir that until the cheese has completely melted and been incorporated into the base of our soup. And then it will be ready to serve. And of course, the base is really hot, so it doesn't take long to melt that cheese into that base. Once I got all of the cheese stirred in and melted, I tasted it and added a little salt and pepper, which the recipe called for salt and pepper, just to taste. And so I'm stirring all that in, and then I'm going to give it another little taste, and I ended up having to add just a little more salt. With all the bacon and the other ingredients, you don't need a lot of salt, but I did need a little bit more there. So I stirred all that in, gave it one more taste test, and it was completely perfect. So on the day before this, I had started a batch of sourdough, and I shaped it this morning into these little bowl shapes, these little smaller loaf shapes, and I baked them earlier today, and now they're cool, and so I'm going to use those to make bread bowls for our soup. So I just cut a little slice off the top there, as you can see, and then I'm just digging the extra bread out of the middle and just putting it off to the side so that we can eat that with our soup. And then I will go ahead and fill each of these with some of the cheese soup. So now I've got both of those bowls ready, and I'm just going to fill them up with the cheese soup and have them both be ready for our dinner. It was actually kind of cold and rainy on this day, and so this nice hot soup with the bread was the perfect meal for the day. I don't know what I'm doing there, trying to rearrange things, I guess. But my husband and I both really, really enjoyed this dinner. And then we had some soup left over that I actually took to work on a couple of different occasions to have for my lunch. So my oldest son had asked me to freeze dry some Skittles for him. He saw some somewhere and he didn't want to pay the price that you pay in the store for them. So he asked me to do regular Skittles and sour Skittles, and I just grabbed them off the shelf at Walmart. And then when I got home and opened them up just now, I realized that the sour ones are gummies. They did not turn out as well. I mean, he still ate them, but they weren't as good as if I just gotten the regular Skittles, which is what I intended to get. So the other 3 trays, I've got the bag of regular Skittles. Of course, I have to taste some, make sure they're still good. And so I've just spread those out on these 3 trays, and then I'm going to put them in my freeze dryer. I've had it cooling for 15 minutes, and then I'm going to add all 4 trays into it. So once all those trays are in there, I'm going to go ahead and close it and close the gasket and then or the drain valve, and then I'll hit continue and let it start freezing, and then those should be ready tomorrow. All
right, our candy's done. These gummies look like they did okay. I'm going to taste one. God, this is so cold. Oh, they're very hard. And sour. I don't really like sour candy. They're actually still chewy in the middle, but I don't think they're going to get any better. So, here's the regulars. Oh my God, that tastes cold.
Hey, so not for you.
I've never seen him do this before. like it grew a little stem or something. Oh, that's cool. Now I have that candy for my son who wanted it, so. Oops. 3 trays of regular Skittles. Oh, yummy. And a tray of gummies.
So I typically do my laundry on Sundays. I wash my clothes, and then typically every other week I do a load of towels. We have a lot of towels, so I don't normally have to do them every week. But I don't know why we ended up with so many. Maybe I didn't do them last week. I'm not sure. Anyway, so I'm taking a break in my morning and just throwing some laundry in. I'm actually washing the towels first because I don't have any of the right towels to go in my bathroom. I've got holiday towels for everything. So I've got specific colors that I put in the bathrooms during the holidays, and those are all dirty. So I'm going to go ahead and get those washing, and then once they're done, then I can start my own clothes washing as well. So on this day, I'm also going to, I think I'm going to make some sourdough later in the day. So I am feeding my sourdough starter right now, and I always weigh mine. I've had much better luck weighing my ingredients versus measuring them. So I'm just adding my flour and water, zeroing out my scale in between each of those, and then I'm just going to stir it up, and it will be ready to set on the counter. And then later in the day, once my starter has doubled in size, then I can go ahead and start my actual sourdough bread mix. If you see there on my stove, I've got a little square pan of some lasagna that I had in the freezer. So typically when I want to use one of those, I will just take it out of the freezer in the morning, set it on the back of my stove. That way the dog doesn't accidentally pull it down, and let it thaw all day. And then by dinner time, it is thawed and ready to go into the oven. And then that makes for a really simple dinner, and we both love the lasagna, so it works out really nice. So my towels are done washing. I'm going to go ahead and get those into the dryer, and then I'll put just my regular clothes in the washer and get those started so that I will have some clean clothes to wear. And I've probably said this before, but we've been in this house for almost 2 years, and we have not had to buy laundry soap a single time. The previous owners, the wife sold some sort of product somewhere, or maybe still sells it, I'm not sure, but they left a bunch of it in the basement, and it's just a concentrated detergent that you mix with water. And so we've been using that ever since we moved in, and we still have quite a bit left. So that is going to work out really nicely for us. So now our towels are done drying. Looks like I must have gotten cold. It's been chilly here lately. So I am folding all of this stuff up so that I can get it all put away and then get my clothes into the dryer. So now that I've got the first part of my laundry done and my sourdough starter has doubled, I'm going to go ahead and just start my sourdough bread dough. That's really hard to say. So again, I'm using my scale, and I use kind of a combination of the recipe from Lisa at Farmhouse on Boone and Becky from the Seasonal Homestead. So I'm just measuring out my flour, and I think I'm just making a single loaf today. So I'm measuring out about 500 grams of flour, and then I'm going to add 325 grams of water. And I used to just pour that straight into my bowl, and then one day I got way too much water because it's hard to control, and the weight of the water adds up faster than you expect it to. So I'm measuring it out into this cup before I put it in with my flour. So then I am using my Danish whisk to just mix the flour and water together. I'm just going to mix it together until we've got that nice kind of shaggy dough there. And then I am going to get a tea towel and get it wet, cover it up, and I'm going to let it sit for at least an hour before I go back and do anything else to it. This step is called autolyze if you are unfamiliar. And basically all we're doing is making sure that the flour has absorbed all of the water and is a really good mixture. So here it's getting close to dinner time. I don't know if my husband's home yet or if he's on his way, but I've got my oven preheating, and then I'm just going to set my my lasagna here on a cookie sheet just in case it bubbles over. And once the oven's preheated, then I'll go ahead and get that in there and we'll get it started. So it has been a little while since I started my sourdough starter. So now I'm going to take my flour and water mixture, and I'm going to add my salt, which is 10 grams if I've done the half recipe, 10 grams of salt, and about 125 to 150 grams of starter. And I think on this particular day, I used way too much starter, and it actually, my loaf turned out really, really good. So when I do the full recipe, which makes 2 loaves, I typically use a whole cup or close to a cup, and I wasn't thinking on this day, and I just grabbed it out, and it was more than I needed, but like I said, it made the dough a little bit softer, and the bread actually came out just amazing. So at this stage, I'm just going to use my hands and kind of start working the flour and water around the starter and kind of working that starter in, and I'm just going to keep kind of pulling it up and pushing it back in until I've got it all mixed in really well, and then I'm going to cover it back up and let it set another 30 minutes to an hour, and then I'll start doing my stretch and folds. So I'm just folding my towel back up, and I think I got it wet again so that it was nice and damp, and put it back over my bowl, and I'm going to let it sit. And my oven is about ready, and there it went. So I'm going to go ahead and get that in my oven. I usually bake it for about 35 to 40 minutes, depending on how thawed the pan is. Sometimes if it's still a little more frozen, I will put the temperature down to 375 instead of 400 so that it doesn't get too brown on top. That got pretty brown, but it was really amazing. I love having these lasagnas and other meals in my freezer so that all I have to do is just mix or just take them out, thaw them, and put them in the oven, and we have a nice simple dinner. So here I am. It's been 35, 40 minutes, 45, I'm not sure, And I'm doing my first stretch and fold. All I'm doing is grabbing the edge of my dough, stretching it up and folding it back in on itself, turning my bowl a quarter turn, and doing it again. And then we're going to cover that bowl back up, let it set again for 30 minutes or so, and then we'll do another stretch and fold. And we'll do that several times throughout the evening until it's ready to go in the refrigerator overnight for a long ferment. So now that our lasagna has cooled a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and plate it for my husband and I so we can eat dinner. And this little square pan is the perfect size for the two of us. I usually eat one piece or a piece and a quarter, and then my husband typically will finish the rest of it. We very rarely have any leftovers, which on the one hand is good, and on the other hand is sort of disappointing that I don't have any leftovers for lunch the next day. So today is Tuesday, this day that we're looking at right now. Our trash day is Wednesday, so during my lunch hour I was taking a few minutes I gathered up all the trash from the other rooms, and I try to remember to clean out the refrigerator on Tuesdays. I don't always remember. I think of it when it's too late. But I knew I had lots of things in the fridge that needed to be cleaned out, so I'm taking out some veggies that have gotten a little bit old, and they go to the chickens. I'm emptying some containers. I wasn't sure what that was. It was actually frosting and needed to go. I'm just cleaning out anything that really doesn't need to be in there anymore. It's getting old or whatever, and getting it dumped so that I can get my refrigerator cleaned out. All the garbage goes either in the trash or to the chickens, and then I don't have a mess, and I have a nice, relatively fresh start to my next week for my refrigerator. So here I've got my bread dough out of the refrigerator, and I'm going to shape it and put it in my proofing basket, and then I'm going to put it, I believe I put it back in the refrigerator for a few hours before I bake it. So I'm shaping it. I'm just pulling the bottom of the dough up and tucking it into the top so that I'm creating a nice tense surface. So the bottom part that's on the counter, I want to make sure that I've got that nice and tight. And so you just continue to pull your dough around and tuck it in the top, and that creates nice surface tension so you get a good rise on your loaf. Once I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and put that in the proofing basket. And as you can see, because of the extra sourdough starter, it is very soft, but it still worked out okay. So I'm going to cover it up, and then I'm going to use just a Walmart grocery sack, put it in there, tie it closed, and stick it in the refrigerator, and I'm going to let it ferment like that the rest of the day before I bake it. And today, because today's Tuesday, that means I've got to go into the office the next day. So I've got to bake it this evening, or I'll have to bake it tomorrow night, which would be fine, but I want to get it done today. So now I am cleaning up some of the mess that I've got on the counter. We have tons and tons of duck eggs, and so I am starting a bowl of warm water, and I'm going to put some of the duck eggs in there so that I can get those washed so that the shells are not so nasty. The ducks like to try to dig their eggs into the gravel and the muck in the pen. They won't lay in the boxes. They just lay in the floor wherever they want to go, but they'll go into the corner and try to hide them. And so they are always really dirty. So here I'm just using a scrubby, and I'm just cleaning them off and then setting them on this towel to dry. I have several of these scrubbies, and anytime I use them to do the duck eggs or any of the eggs like this, the scrubby goes in the dishwasher after I've used it, so it'll be clean to use on other things when I'm done. So here I'm still part of my lunch hour, or maybe this is an afternoon break, I'm not sure, but I'm taking a little bit of time to work on one of my videos. I'm doing some editing here. I typically will spend part of my lunch hour or part of my evenings to go ahead and work on my videos so that I can stay caught up. Sometimes I am doing voiceover, sometimes I'm just editing the regular video, sometimes I'm making shorts. It just depends. Today it looks like I'm doing some voiceover. And so there's all the eggs that I washed, and you can see by the light outside it's evening now. So I have taken my sourdough loaf back out of the fridge. So it's been fermenting for maybe 4 or 5 hours. And I'm going to dump it out onto this piece of parchment paper. I have had like a Dutch oven heating in the oven, and it is hot now, and so I'm going to go ahead and get my loaf ready to go in. So I'm using my little razor blade here, and I'm just scoring it so that the air will have someplace, the gases will have someplace to escape, and it will help it rise. And because my pan is already hot, I need to get my pot holder. So I'm going to go ahead and take that out, take the lid off, and I am going to put my parchment paper and loaf into my pan and get it all set up so that the paper is not doing anything funny to the loaf, which I think I struggled a little bit here getting it to go where I wanted it to go without burning myself. And then for the first part of your baking time, you want to put the lid back on. This helps create steam in your dish, and it will make the bread rise and be a lot better. It'll make for a much better loaf. So while my bread is baking, I am going to take all of these duck eggs and I'm going to break them into this bowl. And all I'm going to do is just whip them up with a fork. We've got so many, I'm just going to freeze dry them. I still have some freeze-dried eggs from last year from our chickens, and I've got those on my pantry shelf. It is nice to use for just scrambled eggs, or if you want to add it, if you need something where you're just adding an egg to a dish, you know, cake mixes or cookie dough or anything like that. It makes it really easy, and it's a great way to preserve your eggs so that you don't lose any of them. So here, while I'm waiting for my freeze dryer to finish cooling, I'm going to go ahead and start dinner. We're just going to have a simple shrimp and pasta. So I always buy the pre-cooked shrimp. These always come with the tails on, which it drives me crazy. I cannot stand to have those tails on the dish when I'm eating it. So I always take the time before I cook it to go through and pull all those little tails off. So I usually just put them in a colander like this, run some water over them. They were still a little bit frozen, so I was running some warm water over them and just pulling the tails off and leaving the shrimp in the colander so that I could give them a good rinse before I start cooking, before I start making them into the dish that I want. So I've got a little bit of olive oil in my skillet there, and I'm just going to dump my rinsed off shrimp in. You can see also I've got a pot of water on that back burner. I'm getting the water ready so that I can make my pasta. And we typically do like an angel hair pasta for this. And then to the shrimp I add garlic, and I usually add some red pepper flakes. I totally forgot about them on this day until they were almost done, which was fine. I remembered, and so it ended up being really good. And then once those start cooking down a little bit, then I also add some lemon juice. and just let them cook until everything is kind of evaporated, and then it gives the shrimp a really nice lemony flavor. I believe I have some lemon-infused olive oil, and I believe that's what I used when I started this dish. So now my freeze dryer is ready, so I've taken my bowl of eggs downstairs, and I put the trays into the freeze dryer because I didn't want to try and move them once they had whipped up egg in them. So I'm just pulling them out a little bit because you could see when I did that first one, I almost spilled it. So I'm just pulling the tray out far enough to be able to manage it, and I'm just kind of trying to make sure I get roughly equal amounts in each tray. It's a little bit hard to judge, but I think I end up doing a pretty good job. And then those freeze dry generally overnight, and by the next morning they are ready. I think I actually didn't end up pulling them out of the freeze dryer until the day after that because I did have to go into the office the next day, and I didn't have time to get them out that morning, and then I had a hair appointment that evening, so I did not get everything done. So back to dinner. I'm salting the water for my pasta and continuing to cook the shrimp. The reason I went back and put more salt in the water is because I recently either read something or heard something from somebody who's Italian who said you want your pasta water to taste like the ocean. So I don't know why. I'm sure there's a good reason for that. But now that my shrimp are almost ready, I've gone ahead and swapped the burners that each of those is on so that my pasta will cook a little faster. You guys know I really don't like this stove very well, but it works. It serves its purpose even if it doesn't do the things I really, really like. And you can see me, I really love raw pasta, so anytime I make pasta like this, I almost always end up eating some dry. So once the pasta was done, I drained it, added my shrimp in there, mixed it all together, and so now I'm just putting our servings into bowls. I'm pouring a little bit of additional lemon juice on top just so that it's not dry. Could also use a little bit of butter, and then I have some freshly shredded Parmesan that I am putting on the top of each of our bowls of shrimp and pasta. Nice, simple dish, very filling, and something that we both really love. So here my sourdough loaf is out of the oven. It slid off the paper as I was trying to get it out of there. I want to put it just on the rack without the paper. So I'm checking it. It gave like a hollow sound when you tap on the bottom, so you know that it's done. It ended up being a very pretty loaf, and it tasted delicious. So here it's the next day or the day after. I'm not sure. I think it was the day after. But my freeze-dried eggs are done, so I'm just going to scrape that egg off of my trays and put it into my blender. And I should have let them sit for just a few minutes because they were flaking everywhere, and I made kind of a mess with that first batch, but that's fine. So I put 2 trays at a time because that's what fit comfortably. And then I just used the blender to blend that all up into a nice powder and then put it into a storage jar. And then I'm going to vacuum seal the lid so that it will be good. And then when we get ready to start using that one after we've finished up with the little bit we have left in the basement, then it will still be good. So I'm just using my little, I'm not sure what that tool is called, to make sure that everything gets down there and gets blended well. It was kind of gumming up a little bit, not gumming up, I don't know, it was too much, I guess. When I first started, it didn't want to blend all of it up well. And so now that it's blended into a nice powder, I am just going to, like I said, put it in that jar for long-term storage. Alright, so it is Saturday morning, and I am going to make a roast and potatoes and carrots for dinner. So I've got some oil in my skillet, and I am searing the sides of my roast. I added a little salt and pepper to this top side, and then I'm going to go ahead and flip it over, and we'll sear the other side. I also held it up so I could sear each one of the edges as much as I could, just by holding it in the skillet. And it is still a little bit frozen. I had it in the refrigerator to thaw, and it wasn't quite thawed. Now that it's all seared, I'm going to put it in my crock pot. And I am adding some beef stock that I had in the refrigerator that needed to be used, so this was a good time to use it. So I've added that, and then I've just covered it up, and I'm going to let it cook for a little while. And now we had clean dishes in the dishwasher, clean dishes on the counter, and as you can see, a sink and counter full of dirty dishes on the other side. We've got couple of our grandkids are coming later today. They're going to spend the night. Our kids are going to a conference. Not a conference. Oh, my goodness. Our kids are going to a concert, and so the grandkids are going to spend the night. So I just want to have everything clean before they get there so that whatever we do, I won't have to mess with all those dishes. So now that I've got the dishes all cleaned up, I went downstairs and got out the last of our potatoes that came out of our garden. Not a whole lot left, but I don't end up using them all on this day. But I'm pulling out some for our roast, and you can see I'm on the phone with, well, I'm sure it's one of my children. But I'm going to take those potatoes, and I'm going to give them a good scrub in the sink, and then I'm just going to cut them in half or in quarters, depending on the size of the potato. They're mostly pretty small. And then those are going to go into the crock pot with the roast. I did not have any carrots like I thought I had, and so actually that just reminded me that I was talking to my youngest son, and he was going to come over and get some of his tools. And so I asked him if he would stop and get me a package of baby carrots, and he said he would. So I'm going to go ahead and add the potatoes now, and then when he gets there with the carrots, I go ahead and add those, and everything cooks very nicely, and it was a really delicious dinner. And the grandkids loved it, and they ate like little pigs, so that was good, because sometimes they don't like to eat.
What is this?
We're going to mix our pancake batter up in there.
What is this?
I'm going to mix up the pancake batter.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
Already.
I need to, hold on.
Oh, hold it, Grandma. It would help me. Hey, Grandma,
it is now Sunday morning. It is super cold today, and we are going to have pancakes and sausage and eggs for breakfast. So got a couple of little helpers this morning. Gwen is helping me mix up the pancake batter. And she's asking a million questions, of course, because she's 2, and that's what they do. And so here comes her brother, and he wants to help because she's helping. So I'm gonna let each of them add some things into the mix so that they can be my big helpers. So this pancake mix is some that we made together. It's my recipe. It uses chopped up oats and protein powder and some other things that make it a little healthier. So when you make the mix up, you need to add melted butter. And so I've got that in the microwave, and then we're going to add some milk and some eggs. So I'm measuring everything out so that the kids can help me. So she was very upset because she got milk on her leg and on her hand. So got her cleaned up, and then Nicholas is going to put the butter in, and I'm going to go ahead and start getting the pans and stuff ready for the other things that we're going to make. So once Nicholas has dumped the butter, then I'm using that same dish to go ahead and break all the eggs into. And now I'm going to let the kids take turns stirring this mixture up. Of course, they both want to stir, and I'm surprised that they're not fighting over the spoon at this point. But each of them will have a chance to stir, and I am going to get out the sausage, which is actually some of the pork that we bought the half a hog a few weeks ago. And so I've got this breakfast sausage that I've thawed, and I'm just going to cut it into slices, and we're going to fry that up as part of our breakfast. So the 6-year-old always wants to help cut anything, and I won't let him because he's very dangerous with a knife, even if you're standing right next to him. So I'm just cutting this sausage up into slices, and then I am going to get it started cooking. And once it's done, then I'll use the grease from the sausage to go ahead and fry up all of our eggs. So I've got the skillet out with the sausage in it, and I'm just going to brown that. It is, of course, raw, so we've got to make sure that that is completely cooked. And then I have that little pan on the left-hand side there, and I start out using it to make the pancakes, and I end up making the pancakes in both that little skillet and the bigger skillet once the eggs are done so that I could get more done at one time. So I had Nicholas help me earlier by setting the table, and so I'm giving him things one at a time so that he can be doing something to help, and he really enjoys that. So I'm going to go ahead and just crack a bunch of eggs into the skillet. We're just going to fry them up. That's the kind of egg that Nicholas likes. He doesn't like scrambled eggs really, so I'm just going to fill the skillet with eggs. My husband eats those. The baby eats those, so that is the best way to cook them. So once the eggs are done, I just slide the whole mess off onto a plate rather than try and cut them apart. Well, they can just cut them apart as they put them on their own plate. So Gwen was starving. She was trying to climb up into her high chair by herself. So Grandpa went ahead and cut her up an egg and some sausage, and she starts eating. Well, they all started eating while I was mixing up the pancakes. So I put a little butter in the skillet on this one, and then after this I just used some spray, which I kind of think I should have stuck with the butter, but they were really good. It just took me a while to make that whole batch of pancakes with just the one skillet. So I went ahead and started using both skillets so that I could get them done faster, and then that way I could eat as well. So here we've got Grandpa and Nicholas and Gwen all eating their breakfast while I finish up the pancakes. As soon as I get all the pancakes made, then I went ahead and sat down and ate my breakfast with them. Nicholas loves eggs. He would eat eggs every meal, every day, forever if you'd let him. I think he had 3 eggs, half a pancake, and several pieces of sausage. Gwen had a couple of eggs and a little bit of pancake. They're really good eaters when they're here. But this was a really delicious breakfast, and it was nice that the eggs were our own, the sausage was some we bought from a farmer, and the pancakes had lots of healthy ingredients in them. So I just want to thank you guys for watching this video and for hanging out while we go through the different things that I've done in a week. I really appreciate the time that you guys spend with me. And if you like this video, if you would please hit the like button. And if you're not currently subscribed, if you would consider subscribing as well. Also, if you are not already signed up, the link to sign up for my newsletter is at the very top of the description box. You can just click the link and put in your email, and then you'll get a once weekly newsletter from me with a little bit of kind of behind the scenes information of what else might be going on in our lives. And you can unsubscribe at any time. So again, I just want to say thank you, and I hope everyone has a fantastic week.